We got the name of the newest god and thus god fruit on the level of the sun god Nika himself, how it relates to the world's most wanted man, Monkey D. Dragon, as well as the continuing of the craziness on Elbaf, Sanji's back, Zoro's back, and the boss fight against the king of the world, Emu, continues, so make sure to stay tuned for this crazy chapter. Now, chill the parking within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing One Piece reviews like this one on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakam if you haven't already by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece reviews and updates. And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So as usual, we gotta briefly go over the last chapter now that we have the official translations rather than the fan translations. One of the big things was Loki's power for sure. We guessed he'd be strong, but he's still fighting Emu up to the current chapter, where, as mentioned, Zoro and Sanji just got a couple of panels when they tried to stand against Emu. We learned more about Emu's extremely versatile omen ability that can seemingly take whatever form the current situation calls for. Emu called it his military might. He said it lurks within all things and showed that he can change his size at will and be as big as Loki when he wants to be. One of the big things was the similarities to Mihawk as well last chapter, since he created a similarly shaped sword and used it similarly to Mihawk when he attacked. This, on top of their similar eyes and other things I mentioned last chapter review, is definitely teasing a connection between these two, but honestly that kind of pales in comparison with the reveals we get in this chapter, but we'll get to that in a bit. Emu also spoke about how corruption, covenants, and the power of omen create the Trinity of domination. He sort of frames it as the easy way to get what you desire and taking advantage of people's lust for easy power, their willingness to choose servitude out of self-interest, and the envy that seeks to achieve one's goals. It's like an explanation of why people find deals with the devil, aka with Emu, appealing. He similarly offers Loki the power of a god that can step beyond all others, but Loki, to his credit, is not interested at all and continues to attack. You gotta appreciate such characters who are not influenced by the temptation. Loki himself can see that this power sounds less like God's domination than a contract with the devil. While for Emu, there is little difference between God and devil, and he even asks as much, saying, "What's the difference?" Emu proceeds to say that domination is the only true bliss in the world before freaking out and screaming, "Isn't that right, Joy Boy?" We also got that panel where the two were looking like friends in a silhouette, suggesting that Emu and Joy Boy might have been friends and on the same team in the past, even though obviously they ended up on different sides eventually. Not surprisingly, as the chapter ends, Luffy is shown eating and saying he's never felt such heavy and harsh haki before, and that he can't win without a full stomach. Loki also gets off a solid hit that sends Emu flying as he is distracted thinking about Joy Boy. However, then Loki turns into his dragon form and launches an attack from his mouth at Emu, but after the dust settles, Emu is simply smiling, thinking "so thou art back," which led me to speculate, as I did previously, that Nidhogg might have been on Emu's side in the past at some point. And that leads us into this chapter where we do find out about exactly that. We start right where we left off after Loki hit Emu with his attack and sent him flying. Loki and Ragnir can still feel that Emu survived the attack, but Loki says he lost sight of him since he's so big now, aka since Loki is so big in his dragon form. Then Emu says something interesting, Nidhogg, to think we'd end up meeting again in this world. He coughs and laughs, showing the attack did have some effect on him before saying dirty traitor. But also, as much as it could be from the impact of the attack, it could be what we've been talking about, that Emu has a certain time limit, and when he's in this form in the lower world, it seems to take a toll on him. But anyways, so regarding the Nidhogg comments from last chapter, we get another clue where Emu tells Nidhogg that it is a traitor, again implying that the creature or a past user of it was at one point aligned with Emu. Clearly there is a history between these guys, but it's interesting that he says to think we'd end up meeting again in this world, as if he didn't expect it. Of course, the Harley also spoke of 3 worlds, the first of the distant past, the second of the void century, and the third of the current era, so sticking to that interpretation, since it's already established and canon, probably makes the most sense at this time. At this point, I'm thinking it's possible that the first and oldest world maybe contained these myths as actual characters and living people, and not just devil fruits. Then perhaps in the void century was when they became fruits that carried on the original's will. We'll have to wait and see. But could it be that way back when Emu actually knew the real Nidhogg before he became a devil fruit, so to speak? Or was the one he knew also a devil fruit user? If Emu's devil fruit is the first of the fruits, as many have theorized since it is called the devil's fruit, then it wouldn't be that surprising if Emu knew some of these beings before they became fruits. Yarul also spoke of the warrior god who fought alongside his ice squirrel Ratatoskr. Without his warrior god master, Ratatoskr chose to inhabit his master's hammer until its owner's return, we're told by Yarul. So in this case, Emu presumably knew Ratatoskr before he was a fruit, if he goes that far back. But then again, he calls him Ragnir, which is the hammer name, as we'll see. So maybe by the time they met, the two, meaning Ratatoskr and Ragnir, were already one. There's another possibility that Nidhogg and Emu met before in an actual other world, not just in another time in the same world, as crazy as those implications would be. But for now, let's just mention the fact that these aren't the official translations, so I'm excited to see how what Emu is saying is potentially clarified when the official translations come out on Sunday. Fascinating stuff nonetheless. So to his credit, as we see, Loki's fight against Emu is continuing in this chapter, and the longer this battle goes on, the more and more impressive Loki looks, and as a big Loki fan, I love to see it. It starts to snow and then Emu says something interesting. He says, "Snow, all right, that's true. Lightning is produced by the collision of ice particles with each other. You two are really made for each other." So props to Emu for knowing that, because I did not. I probably thought only Nami would know something like that. But again, it reinforces that destiny and meant to be aspect that seems to run throughout One Piece. These two are meant to work together. As mentioned, Emu actually addresses Ragnir here and says, "Ragnir, thou art as I remember thee, waiting all this time for a new master. How nostalgic." Ragnir responds aggressively, "Giga, giga, giga, giga," with exclamation marks. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking, give us more, Emu. Stop just teasing your connection with these guys. I want the flashback. I want something more substantial. We then get the official box reveal of Ragnir the Hammer having the mythical Zone Ratatoskr fruit. Thus, it is confirmed that Ragnir was a hammer that ate the mythical fruit Ratatoskr or ice squirrel, which we pretty much already guessed. I don't think anyone's surprised by this. Someone new to One Piece may be confused, but it's not the first time we've seen something like this. Inanimate objects can have devil fruits, although we've never seen the moment an inanimate object actually quote-unquote eats the devil fruit as far as I know. But still, this is not the first time we've seen something like this. Unfortunately, Ragnir doesn't enter into a back and forth about their past with Emu, but at least we do see a combo attack, which is cool. Ragnir produces what looks like a cloud of ice, and Loki launches his dragon beam into it, or I should say through it, calling the combined attack Iron Thunder 5 Arrows. One would assume this combo attack is way deadlier than Loki's already strong solo attack, otherwise why do it? And Emu doesn't just take this one, which tells you something, but uses an attack totally pronounced Tsitsi Mittel, Eclipse Bombardment, to counter with animated black flame heads that seem to intercept the quote-unquote arrows before they reach Emu. So Tzitzimitl is a god associated with Aztec mythology, depicted as female figures wearing skirts, and have been described as demons or devils. Rather than assuming by this name that this is a clue to specifically what Emu is, I'd guess this is just adding to the devil-like / demon-like nature of Emu, who seems to be inspired by many devil-related myths worldwide, including, like we talked about before, the most commonly known Christian version. So multiple chapters in, and Emu looks no closer to beating Loki. Crazy impressive on Loki and Ragnir's part when you think about it. Then we find out that, as I predicted, Zoro and Sanji weren't down for the count. Now, I shouldn't get any credit because it wasn't that difficult to see coming, but they do indeed get back up and are injured, of course, but not defeated. We see Sanji first. Bonnie and Lilith find him. Lilith tells Bonnie not to run off, and for now, she'll be the one to protect her, which is nice to see. They are watching Emu, and Lilith wonders, who is this guy? He clearly commands the Holy Knights, but he's not an elder. We then see Vegapunk too, showing Lilith is sharing his thoughts as well when she says it's a colossal organization that has endured for 800 years, so it's only natural that power struggles give rise to darkness. And if that's the case, ... Oh, Hoda, why do you do this? Why do you do these cliffhanger ... dots? We then get interrupted. Sanji, despite being hurt, starts getting up, saying, I can't stay here, Bonnie. We get a flashback of Killingham commenting to Sanji that he didn't even have to deal with him himself. Killingham says the simple fact that you're still alive is a real anomaly. That's the thing. Even though some people thought that Emu stuff made Zoro and Sanji look bad, I think we're actually supposed to take it like this. They're both proving themselves by getting up afterwards, despite taking attacks from such a strong opponent. Still, even if that's true, you can't deny that Loki looks all the better because of how poorly they fared. Sanji asks Killingham where he's going. Killingham, now boosted by Emu's powers, says, I'm going to accomplish my original goal. Do you feel it? This power surging within me. He seems to hurt Sanji again as a farewell gift, but in the present we see an injured and angry Sanji running towards Killingham, saying he doesn't intend to leave the children alone. So yes, the original detestable kidnapping plan is back on. Lilith and Bonnie call out to Sanji because he's so hurt, but he can't be held back, saying we can't just wipe out all the battles we've fought up to now. This is the land that Usopp and Luffy admire. We have to protect Elbaf, meaning it doesn't matter if he's hurt or not, he has to do it, which is a pretty epic stance, honestly. And then finally he adds a very Sanji touch, which made me laugh. He says, this is the land of giant beauties. Of course, the true reason he needs the help. We then jump to the library. Turns out that there was a hidden room where Biblo took the books to save them from the fire. I love how quickly they just explained what happened with Biblo and the books in like 1 or 2 lines. A masterclass at efficient exposition right there. Of course, it makes sense that the books would not have been saved before just to get destroyed here. I think Oda knows that would have been a giant bummer and wasn't planning to do it. And you could say that Biblo, the owl, is Robin's hero to be sure here, given how much it means to her. She says, thank you so much. I thought everything had burned. Saul adds, I'm grateful too, but I'm starting to see you're more of a mystery than I first reckoned. And it's good to see and make sense that the owl guardian of the library would work to and have ways of saving the books that are the heart of a library after all. As someone who loves books, I appreciate it. And this could just be me and the perspective, but since Saul and Robin look further away and the books are closer to us, from the look of it, I think that Biblo might have made the books smaller, just like he makes human books that enter the library bigger to help accomplish the saving job. I would assume he can make books small as well as big. We haven't gotten the reveal of his devil fruit yet, so can't be 100% sure how his powers work, but that's my thought process based on the information we've received so far. Let me know what you think. Am I imagining the books looking smaller here? We then jump to Summers. Summers, for his part, is now able to lift and throw a giant ship all by himself. Goes to show how much stronger they are after Emu's power-ups. So like Emu mentioned, he can offer almost impossible to imagine levels of power, not confusing why people would be enticed at the prospect of easily gaining such power. Clearly, both of these holy knights are now fully continuing with their plans to kidnap the kids, so that plan has not been abandoned as one might have thought it would be recently. Crazy the complete 180 we got in a couple of chapters, from utterly defeated holy knights to not just a retreat, but the initial plan being back on track, like nothing went wrong. Summers now calls himself Super Summers, which is pretty funny, as we see the Omen ring above him. He says, I've found a suitable giant's ship. Get the brats over here in the next 5 minutes. We then jump to the Western Village Tavern, where we catch up with Chopper nursing Gerd's fingers, which as we remember had been cut off. He says it was a clean cut, so this treatment should reattach your fingers, but it'll take a couple months to heal completely. Scary stuff, but it's good that she will be okay in the long run. Gerd says, thank you, Chopper. I feel so useless though. I'm supposed to be treating everyone myself. But Chopper says firmly, it can't be helped. Don't beat yourself up about it. Cool to see him taking charge in a situation like this. Others thank Chopper for saving their moms, but Chopper says it was just first aid. Once we're out of this mess, I'll treat them properly. Road is traumatized that his top idol's fingers were severed, referring to Gerd. She says she's good, but Road responds, how cold, and yet even your spite is something I'm grateful for in these trying times. Classic weird Road. He does get credit here though, and I love to see it. Gerd says, I have to give it to you though, risking your life to save your brother Bjorn. I have a newfound respect for you, Rodo. Her smile and affectionate words arouse a hilarious, shocked, and to be sure overjoyed expression from Road. He's told not to get too excited though because he's making his wounds gush blood. And his hilarious response is, "I'm high on Gurtaso." His little brother thinks to himself, "And I was just starting to look up to you," before of course he went and ruined it with his usual weird behavior. So nice to see that this chapter had some pretty hilarious moments on top of the epic ones. We then see Zoro, who is riding on Goldberg to take advantage of his giant strides. For Goldberg, it's the least he can do since he's the only member of his crew, the New Giant Pirates, who hasn't suffered major wounds in this battle yet. He also notes that this is an Elbaf crisis and is thankful that they are lucky enough to have the Straw Hats fighting on their side. Zoro says, "Don't sweat it, our captain's motto is basically, 'My friend's country is my country.'" To which Goldberg responds, "No wonder Hiruden pledged himself to Luffy." And yeah, when you think about it, that really did pay off. Hiruden actually pledging himself to Luffy could be what saves his homeland. Zoro looks in better shape than Sanji, honestly, as he says, "But what's with those black flames? They turned into steel bullets and explosives. And those knights we beat seem to have powered up. If we don't wrap this up soon, it's gonna get real ugly." We then cut to Killingham, who seems worried as he tells Summers he's gone and done it and summoned something insane. So I love how Oda within the chapter is hyping up what he's doing. He goes on saying, "I accidentally summoned what I'm most scared of. I just got carried away," and he does look terrified when he's saying this. Summers calls him a stupid idiot and says that thing is terrifying to all of us. He hopes Killingham can control it. Killingham, despite his fears, assumes he should be able to, since it is a dream demon after all, and not the real thing. And something I didn't see in the spoilers that got leaked beforehand, but still very interesting in this chapter, when asked about Gunko, Killingham said he saw her on the way there and she looked dead, to Summers and our shock. I doubt she is actually dead, of course, this is One Piece, but that's an interesting piece of information nonetheless. Did the omen not have the same effect it was supposed to have because she was awakening to her old memories and no longer necessarily as loyal to Emu as the other two? Summers responds, "Well, whatever. The great Emu's body isn't meant to be out in this world." So we guessed this when he was summoned and started coughing up blood. And again, we have this world being brought up as if he exists in another world, not just another place in this world, meaning Marijoa. It'll be interesting to see how Oda addresses the this world and that world talk. He goes on to say, "Our key combat forces and the forces that must be erased are all right here. We must not disappoint the Great One. We must live up to expectations," and Killingham agrees. We suddenly see that it's raining hard in the western village. Killingham commands his dream monster to capture the kids, and we see a giant water arm holding on to Colin and the others. So this is by far the biggest reveal of the entire chapter. He creates Zaza, the rain god or goddess, depending on the translation, whom the celestial dragons fear the most. One would think that this is in part because of her flooding powers, which is a potential reason they live so high up geographically. Just the dream monster of Zaza is so strong, she easily floods the entire village in this chapter, let alone imagine what the real one could do. Not to mention she floods it in like no time flat. Imagine if she had more time to work with. Killingham further explains that celestial dragons who were born in the lands above the rain clouds feared the idea that water could fall on them from the sky. Furthermore, when they were children, the celestial dragons were told a certain story alongside the stories of the clan of D and Nika. That frightening story spoke of a monstrous rain deity who lived in the lower world and covered people's heads with water. So that's one translation. But that one right there would also help to explain why the celestial dragons have the orbs or fish bowls around their heads, seemingly to protect them from the Zaza covering their heads with water. However, a more recent translation phrased it differently, saying the monster known as the rain god, the one who pelts the lower realm with water from overhead. Either way though, the fish bowls around their heads may be there to keep their heads from drowning if their worst nightmare was to come true and Zaza started to flood them like it's doing to the giant village. This deity appeared to the rhythm of rain rituals, aka to the rain dance, and its name was Zaza. So just like the sun god appears alongside the drums of liberation, we also get the rain dance associated with Zaza. We see her and she doesn't look funny like the kid drawings, but like an actual potential One Piece character. We see her eyes and hair, but the rest of her seems to be all made up of water, from her hat to her 4 hands to the emu-like ring around her back, but hers is made of pure water rather than flames and eyes. Either way, it seems clear that she's on the level of Nika the sun god and Emu when it comes to her level or tier. It's shown that Zoro and Sanji are preparing to fight against Killingham and Summers, and I have no doubt that they'll be able to beat them, power-ups and all. It's funny, as they see each other, they tell each other not to screw up, such a Zoro and Sanji moment right there. However, the really big part of all this is the implication of this water god Zaza. After everything we've learned about the D-Clan and Sun God Nika in particular, isn't it crazy that this Zaza is feared even more than anything? Of course, I'm not the first on the internet to notice that this mythical devil fruit would fit Luffy's dad and the leader of the revolutionaries perfectly. But let's dig into why exactly that is. Now, I won't go as far as the internet did and say Dragon having the Zaza fruit could make him Luffy's dad and mom at the same time. The way I look at it is that Dragon with this fruit would look like a male version of Zaza, just like Bonnie looked like a female version of Nika. So that would be the simplest way Oda could probably do it. But why does this theory make so much sense? It's almost obvious, because both Zaza and Dragon are both the natural enemy of the Celestial Dragons. It would help explain why Dragon is the world's worst criminal and most wanted man, because he is the worst nightmare of the Celestial Dragons. Then there's all the times we've seen Dragon presumably use his devil fruit. It made many theorize, including me, that it was a sort of wind or weather related fruit, because wind and a storm would accompany him. And if you ask me, it makes sense that a rain god fruit could do all this. We know mythical zones can have multiple powers, and that should be no less true for the most feared one. Rain itself is usually accompanied by not just water, but wind and lightning, just like we saw when Luffy was saved at Logtown. It would also explain why Dragon would be so hard to catch. He literally gets into the water, and if you chase him with a ship, he could absolutely destroy you. Further, revolution itself has historically been tied to rain. Rain is frequently used as a metaphor for the winds of change, or a cleansing force necessary for social and political revolution, often framed as revolution amidst the rain. So yes, Oda could not pursue that route because it's not confirmed, but it almost seems too good to not be true at this point. Even the fact that Dragon has a goddess fruit makes us immediately think of Ivankov, an important revolutionary close to him. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with me that this makes too much sense for Dragon, or do you think someone else will have the fruit? Because there's zero doubt in my mind that we will get this fruit before all is said and done. The only question is, who will have it? If you did enjoy this video, YouTube says you'll like this one, link on screen right now. Like and subscribe for more One Piece, and I'll see you after a break next week for the next one.